Hello and welcome to this very special edition of ET Now Startup Central, India's only daily show dedicated to entrepreneurship, technology and innovation. On the show today, we have a very special guest. He dons many hats, Infosys co-founder, Aadhaar architect, a technocrat, an author, and also a very bullish investor on India's startup story. Mr. Nandan Nilekani, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us on ET Now. I have to ask you about digital payments. So much has changed over the last 2 years, from wallets and UPI, of course, which is seeing massive adoption. You've also sort of yesterday been a part of an event that launched Sahamati on the account aggregator platform. Where do you see all of this sort of, falling in place as far as digital payments in India is concerned?
Well, I think what you're seeing today is actually part of a decade-long journey where India has created population-scale digital public goods, which are created either by the state or by some kind of national body and made available to 1 billion people. And it began with the Aadhaar journey, and it's exactly 10 years back in July of 2009 that I joined the government to start the Aadhaar project, and that led to 1.2 billion people with Aadhaar, the world's largest cash transfer program, more than 300 million people opened bank accounts, and so on. So the whole thing was one big thing. I think the payment journey especially began with the UPI. UPI was launched in 2016.
True.
And pre-demonetization, it was about 100,000 transactions a month. Of course, we had wallets and so on, but UPI was a bank interoperable system. And then post demonetization and with the Prime Minister launching the BHIM application, UPI usage really went up. And today UPI is at about 800 million transactions a month, worth about $25 billion. So now it's really become a state-of-the-art payment system with many applications built on top of it, so whether it's Paytm or PhonePe or Google Pay or WhatsApp Pay,
so
or
everyone
Amazon.
getting on.
Everybody runs the rail, and this is a very high performance, low cost rail, which is very unique to the world.
So is it also time to take this made in India innovation, so to say, global? Of course, you've sort of recommended it in the committee that RBI had commissioned. The government also is looking at it. So can this, in that true sense, go global from here?
Well, we believed when we did the report, and we have suggested 5 or 6 ways that UPI can go global. And recently Rahul Matan, the lawyer, wrote an article on that. So yes, I think it is a technology that's ready for prime time and it should be taken global. And I am hoping that, that's not my decision. The board of NPCI has to do that. And in any case, that also the part of the payments was the report which I chaired. What happened was the governor of the Reserve Bank asked me to chair a committee on deepening of payments, and we had a very stellar set of members on that group. And that report was submitted in the May of this year.
True.
And that report said that if we take all the right decisions, the digital payments per capita can go up from 22 to 220 per person, that's 10 massive. Times in 3 years. And not just through UPI, but through all kinds of things. And the fundamental thing is we have to make acceptance more ubiquitous, because now we have solved the problem of opening bank accounts, and in some sense we have solved the problem of putting money into bank accounts, because between DBT payments coming into bank accounts and remittances going from urban to rural India, a lot of money is going into hundreds and millions of bank accounts. Now you have to, so the credit into a bank account has sort of been done.
True.
Now it's about debiting through a transaction at a merchant and so on. So our report focused on that, and if we do that properly, I think we can go 10x in 3 years.
Of course, a host of recommendations that you made, you chaired the committee by RBI. But the government also, there has been a push at the budget. We sort of saw the finance minister announce the MDR charges, so to say, would be done away with. Of course, there's a lot of dilly-dallying there. The banks and RBI are supposed to take care of the cost, but the Payments Council of India indicate that won't happen. So it's sort of a limbo. So is there a middle ground, so to say, while we go around really pushing digital adoption?
Well, I can say what our committee said. Our committee said that we should see, there are two things. One is the absolute MDR, and the second is the division of the MDR between issuer and acquirer. And our view was that we should give more to the acquirer, because unless the acquirer makes money from MDR, why will you put up more POS machines or why will you put up more Aadhaar Pay in some remote village unless you make some money out of it? So I think that was our view. On the MDR itself, we took a view that the market should decide the MDR, but it was more about reapportioning the balance between acquirer and issuer. And that we think is one of the reasons to create a large acquisition network.
All right. So this has been a long-standing debate as far as data, payments data is concerned. MNCs, where should they really hold? Of course, the RBI has a stand on it. The data localization bill, so to say, will we will see more clarity. But do you think RBI has also indicated that critical data has to be stored in India? It can be processed outside for 24 hours and bought back. Is there a larger need in terms of clarity also about data and Indian data sort of staying on Indian shores?
No, I think this is an evolving space. I think the Reserve Bank has taken a view that as India has more and more digital payments, having uninterrupted digital payments is vital, because if the entire economy runs on this, then, and therefore you need to do that, and perhaps one of the things can be localization of the payment data. The data privacy bill, which is still in draft mode, Sri Krishna committee, so that has not yet, the final draft, final version has not yet come out, will have a view in general about data location, and may actually say that the data location policy can be done by individual regulators. So they'll probably, that's I think how it will go, but I don't know what's happening. So I think this is an ongoing debate, and this is an issue around the world. See, I think the way to think about this is that India is both doing technology innovation and at the same time enabling the legal infrastructure around this technology. And this is a global issue, because sometimes innovation goes ahead of technology, law and so on. So in India, thanks to Aadhaar, and because the Aadhaar thing was challenged in the court on privacy, that led to the fundamental right to privacy, that led to the Aadhaar judgment, which
the larger discussion
upheld Aadhaar as within that fundamental right to privacy, led to the Aadhaar law. Now we have a data privacy law. India is a very interesting country where technology innovation and legal innovation in some sense are going back and forth. But the net result is that India will have a far better regime of both technology and law to deal with the modern issues of these things.
That we really haven't had for a long time.
No, but that's true everywhere. I think these things, see, with the pace at which innovation happens around the world, it's very difficult for the government and regulators to keep pace with that. It's just the nature of the beast. So we always have to have this back and forth. And I think relative to what's happening in the rest of the world, India has done a very good job in making sure these two move in tandem.
Interesting. As far as Aadhaar is also concerned, we have seen the government also move an amendment bill to ensure private companies can voluntarily, of course, if users want to, and the PAN and the Aadhaar interchangeable, the budget that was announced. So there is a lot more scope in terms of how you sort of extend this to other forms of authentication and the clarity that is really emerging from the space.
Yeah. So I think, in the Supreme Court judgment on Aadhaar, because of the fact that it was in a section of the law, money bill, all that stuff, they had said private people, private entities can't use Aadhaar. But I think now all that has been rectified through a proper law and passed both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. So I think now, all the Aadhaar issues have now become settled. And now I think you will see more and more usage of Aadhaar. And I think it will improve the economy, it will give more benefits, it will allow people to improve their lives. So I think it's a good thing.
Of course, all the criticism, so to say, has been laid to rest by the Supreme Court judgment.
I think you have a judgment of the Supreme Court, which has upheld the fundamental right to privacy and upheld Aadhaar. You have a set of laws passed by Parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, signed by the President. So I think there's nothing really now.
There's no more questions. So also we've seen an interesting bit on JAM really as a Yojana. A lot of startups building Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile around it. There were some regulatory concerns. Things have sort of eased out. That's really a big bet for startups solving for India innovation and for India problems really.
Well, I think the big achievement of the last 10 years is the creation of digital public goods. And whether we call it JAM or India Stack, it's essentially, JAM is about the fact that everybody has a bank account, everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has an identity, Aadhaar. India Stack is about using this infrastructure to do authentication, KYC, digital signatures, data lockers and so on. And all these have now been implemented, and all implemented at population scale. And that's I think the big thing that India has done, which is built, it has sort of moved the internet forward in a way that it provides these capabilities for development. And I think it's also a platform of innovation. So, because it reduces costs,
Sure.
reduces time, and now it's up to individual innovators to use all this to create,
Use the platform,
to create better solutions and products and more convenience for people.
Of course, we're seeing so many more startups sort of lap up to India's stack to solve problems. Coming to the startup ecosystem here in India, the number of unicorns we've seen this year have sort of doubled from last year entirely. The exit from Walmart sort of has enthused confidence. According to you, what really are those 2-3 big trends that are standing out from a startup ecosystem point of view, with policy clarity coming in? There's VC money available, there's that enthusiasm also in place.
No, I think we are at a very good place in the startup world, because as you rightly said, the Walmart entry into Flipkart endorsed the belief that India could create really large startups, and they were valuable globally. And then we have seen, and now there's a broadening, there are more unicorns and all that. So I think the good news is that all these people are using this technology, ubiquitous smartphones, Aadhaar, all these things, to create solutions that actually benefit people. Sure. I mean, take a category like food delivery. They didn't exist. Okay, maybe you could get your Domino's pizza, but otherwise there was no food delivery as a...
It's very scattered market.
Now it's a 3 million meals a day market. And that's expected to grow to 10 million meals a day, which means that 10 million meals are being consumed in somebody's house, delivered through Swiggy or Zomato, Uber Eats or Food Panda or whatever. And I think that is changing people's lives, or e-commerce, or also at the back end, people are implementing logistics like Fortigo and others. So, I think different parts of the Indian economy are going to benefit from these startups, because they're all focused on how to get Indians to have better services, more convenience.
What sectors are you betting on? Is it largely fintech services, mobility? What are the sectors that you personally interested in?
First of all, I'm not such an active investor. I do have a few investments, but I've stopped doing new investments. Second is, I don't generally invest in areas where I'm doing some work policy-wise, because I don't want any issues. So I invest in, for example, I invest in supply chain like Fortigo. I invest in this fruit and vegetable supply chain like Ninja Cart, or Rail Yatri, which is trying to offer bus service and so on, companies like that. I think that another investment track I have is, along with Sanjeev Agarwal of Helion, I've set up a fund called Fundamentum, which is about scaling up, not about startups, but helping companies grow big. And we have two investments there: Travel Triangle, which is a holiday travel system, and Farm Easy, which is an online pharmacy. True. So I no longer do individual investments, and Fundamentum is very, very picky and selects
focused on scale,
1 or 2 companies a year. So that's all. I'm not that active as an investor.
But you do have a solid portfolio over the last few years that you've sort of...
Yeah, actually I only began doing investments after 2014, True. When I was neither in government nor in Infosys. And I've been selected maybe a dozen companies, and also in where they're solving some unique Indian problem.
What's really the best way to reach out to Nandan Nilekani for entrepreneurs watching the show? Is it at events? Do they write to you for mentorship, really?
Well, obviously, I am also bandwidth constrained. So I can't sort of spend all my time doing mentoring, because I also have a job, etc. But I'm quite accessible. I mean, I go for many events. Next week, on August 2nd, Vinod Khosla and I are doing an event in Bangalore together, and we're going to talk about our experiences in, the disruption and technology in US and India. Now that's an event which is we expect maybe 100, 200 entrepreneurs to come. I'm a mentor to iSpirit, where they have events.
Sort of access, yes.
For 2 years in a row, I was on the Startup Awards, chairing the jury and all that. So that's how I keep myself. And, and sometimes I'm well connected in the VC community. So they call me up and say, can you mentor this guy, or can you just give your independent view? So I do that. But I wouldn't say that it's all the time.
All right, you have sort of access through events, through VC communities, that's the best way. But so in terms of sectors for India, is it largely, what are you really bullish on in terms of mobility, things that would sort of shape the next 10, 20 years? Is it still financial services, mobility really?
No, I think India financial services will be a huge thing because India is still underpenetrated in that sense. And I think the infrastructure of India stack that we have created, the fact that we have these massive new online systems like the GSTN and the announcement of the account aggregator,
Sure.
which enables small businesses and individuals to get their own data, is really laying the foundation for an unprecedented rise of tech-enabled financial services. So that's going to be a long, I think that's a big area. That's one area where people are doing a lot of things. Mobility, of course, and mobility is going through multiple things. There's sharing, which is the Ola kind of thing. You have the EV, Aether energy and all, so on, going from internal combustion to.
And there's a policy push for EV as well.
And the government is pushing for EVs by 2030. There's autonomous cars, though we haven't seen that much in India. So I think there's a lot of stuff happening. So mobility is also going to be a big area. And what can happen is that whenever there's a technology shift like this, new players will emerge. So I think we're going to see a lot of. I think supply chain and logistics is going to be huge. I think that, and that's also partly because the government building GST. So there's a single tax for the country. The government building the electronic tolling system. So it's all, now they said from November, December, all tolls will be electronic. So all these things are making the movement of goods in the country more efficient. And with the rise of e-commerce, people want instant gratification. They want same-day delivery or 2-hour delivery or whatever. So I think all this is putting pressure on the supply chain to become more efficient.
So a lot more disruption that we will see in the coming time.
And this is more backroom, so you don't know what's happening, but I think the supply chain, the warehousing, the trucking, the delivery is all going to change dramatically.
All right. Also, we did reach out to entrepreneurs telling them we have you on the show, and they've sent in some questions for you. So requesting you to take that.
Hi, I'm Naren, a co-founder of I Am Here. We are a hyper-local social startup working to connect people in the neighborhood for hobby, interest, and profession. My question to you is, there's a lot of stuff that startups and government can do together. For example, startups wouldn't mind running a free pilot for a government initiative. While there has been a little done in this space, there could be something more that can be done. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think startups, obviously, for the government, one role it can play is create an environment for startups to be successful. I think as far as doing pilots with the government are concerned, you have to be clear about the ground rules, because is that pilot going to lead to, suppose the pilot is successful, does that lead to actually the government buying your product or service, or you do the pilot and then it goes back to a procurement model, because procurement is a big issue in government. So I think unless that is spelled out, one has to tread carefully.
Hi Nandan, this is Puneet. I'm the founder of Fabric. We are an augmented reality startup. And my question to you is, I'm sure in the early days of Infosys, you would have faced the same kind of teething troubles that all startups face. So what were the top 3 things that you did to ensure survival, and how did you scale up and thrive both in India as well as in the global market?
Well, I think the big shift happened to Infosys in the early 90s when it went from essentially just an entrepreneur-led company to a much more scalable professional company. So one was far more focused on strategic planning, thinking about the future, investing ahead of time. Way back in the early 90s, Infosys built a software campus before anybody else and invested in education and training before anybody else. So I think seeing the future and willing to make the investment upfront for that future is very important. And obviously designing a company for scale. How do you go from 10 million to 100 million revenue? I'm not talking about market cap, revenue. 100 million to 1 billion, 1 billion to 10 billion. That's there's a technique to do this properly.
Hello sir, I'm Vaishnavi, the founder of The Nestry. We're a curated marketplace for sustainable children's products. And I have a question for you. We're a really early stage startup with non-tech founders, but operating in a tech category. So how do we take these tech decisions without really knowing so much about what is it that we are getting into? We have mentors, but how do we base those decisions? So that's my question for you. Thank you.
No, I think tech decisions, you should get people to work with you who are very good tech architects, because I think the technology choices that you make in designing a products can have a huge impact on the future. If you don't take the right choices, you will get stuck with the wrong technology, or you can't scale it up, or it becomes expensive, or it's not sufficiently configurable, and so on. So I think getting very good tech architects to review your design is very important.
Hey, my name is Sumit Jain. I am co-founder of OpenTalk, a social voice app. My question to Nandan Nilekani is, we are seeing a lot of billion-dollar startups coming up. Few are turning into $10 billion startups, but we are far from seeing a $100 billion business. So what should change for that to happen?
Well, I think a $100 billion market cap company from the startup world, I think, is still some time away. I mean, if you look at the IT companies today we have in India, Infosys has a market cap of about 47, 48 billion. So I think across the world today in the tech space, there's only maybe 10 or 15 companies with a market cap of more than 100 billion. So I think that's some time off, but certainly going from 1 billion to 10 billion in market cap. But also I think finally that market cap has to be backed by real revenue and real profits. A lot of the market cap today is based on the hope of these companies. But at some point, the companies have to fulfill that hope.
Hi, my name is Ankit and I'm co-founder of Gentrax. So my question to you is, recently there has been a push to use open data for policy making, especially from the governments. So my question to you is, young startups which are working this domain, how should they approach and work with government departments, especially in identifying the problem set as well as enabling the trial and feedback loop for their solutions?
I think open data is important, but I think the real thing is how well the plumbing is in place. I think if open data is being provided by governments and cities and municipalities in a machine readable format, if there are APIs, if there's infrastructure to connect, that's very important. Otherwise, if you have to go and ask someone for data, then it becomes problematic. I think in India, at least on the transactional side, everything has been built with APIs, Aadhaar APIs, UPI, everything is API based. So we have built an API economy. Even the recent account aggregator framework is API based. So I think at least in some parts of the government stack, this API thing is going to help, and you need the same thinking in open data.
Hi Nandan, this is Rishabh from Red Wing Labs. I am a co-founder of a drone delivery company. I had a question for you. I want to know what to do when investors keep holding on for too long. They don't give a yes or no answer. That's my question.
Yeah, I think you should, hopefully bring them to some conclusion. But I have found that if the company has the right and promising business model, investors move very quickly to make the decisions. I know one company where the investor took a huge decision, $100 million investment in a week's time or 2 weeks.
All right. Last couple of questions. We have a rapid fire round for you, and we will see how we sort of fare in this. A new app that you're hooked to.
I'm actually quite technologically illiterate in my consumption of tech, because I find that if I use too many apps, then that's all I do. So now I'm more into an appless world. It's about reading and thinking and not using an app.
Interesting. A book that you're currently reading or plan to read?
Yeah, I'm reading a book on capitalism by the former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, about the American capitalism.
A technocrat or an entrepreneur that you sort of admire?
I'm a big fan of Satya Nadella. I think what he has done at Microsoft is astonishing, and I think today Microsoft is a $1 trillion market cap company. It didn't do so well in the mobile era, but now they come back in a big way in the cloud, and he's a great, empathetic, thoughtful leader.
Your productivity hack or secret, what do you do to ensure you're a lot more productive?
I don't follow cricket, I don't follow politics, I don't follow Bollywood.
Interesting. A big mistake that you have learned from? Anything that comes to
Standing for elections.
Your life philosophy, if you were to sum it up in a few words?
Get up every day and add some value.
Lastly, money advice for millennials.
Money should be a byproduct of your aspirations and activities.
Works well. So thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to
Thanks,
us.
Rahul.
Wonderful chatting with you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rahul.
you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.